In fact, even when the Muslim armies were fighting in Syria and the area now that's known as Jordan and Syria and Palestine and that sort of area, in fact, Christians were writing to Umar. They were writing to him, asking him to come and liberate them from the rule of the Byzantines. And in the letter they would say, well, one letter reads that even though they are our brothers in faith, meaning even though the Byzantines are Christians like us, they treat us unjustly. Whereas we know that you will treat us justly. So they were inviting the Muslims to come and rid them of the tyranny of the Byzantines. This is how the justice of Umar was known. So there's one man, this Jabala, who was from this noble tribe, this noble man from this noble tribe. He was making pilgrimage. He was making actually the small pilgrimage. And one poor Arab man trod on his cloak and pulled his cloak down. So this man, he hit this poor Arab, smashed him in the nose, right, and sort of pushed him away. And when that happened, this Arab went to Umar. He went to complain to Umar. Again, this is the caliph of the Muslims, and this poor guy is just going up and complaining to him. That's just another thing. I mean, you've got this poor guy just going up to Umar, who's the caliph of all the Muslims, and complaining. It's just amazing just thinking about these type of things. I mean, this is a man, Umar ibn al-Khattab, used to sleep sometimes on the steps outside the mosque. He just used to eat dried bread. If you'd seen him, you wouldn't have known him any different from just some, average guy or less than average guy on the street. People used to be amazed at what? That's the leader of these Muslims? This army, this people, this great, conquering people, and this is the leader? And that was him, Umar. So he went to Umar and he complained about this guy. So Umar called him, and this is what Jalabi said. He said, this rascal trod on my reverence for the Kaaba, okay? And he said, if I wasn't allowed to shed blood here, I would have killed him. I would have chopped his head off. Okay? And so Umar said to him, he asked this man, did you tread on his scarf? Did you do this on purpose? Did you aggravate him purposefully? And the man said, no, I was very crowded. The Kaaba's crowded. I trod in his cloak by mistake. So Umar said to the man, Jalaba, do you agree that this was not intentional? He said, I don't care whether it was intentional or not. He said, I am a noble Arab and he is some commoner, and it doesn't matter to me whether he did it on purpose or not. He dishonored my position. So Umar said, in Islam there is no distinction between a prince and a commoner. You could not take the law into your own hands merely on the grounds that you are a prince and he is a commoner. So Jalaba got very upset about that. He said, I thought that Islam would add to my dignity and prestige, and here Islam is becoming an instrument for my humiliation. So Umar said, the law has to have its own course and I'm obliged to do justice. You've got two alternatives. Either you patch up with this man, or you're going to have to face my verdict. And the verdict is going to be that whatever that he did to the man is allowed to do back to him. Okay, so if he's punched the man in the nose, this man is going to be able to punch him back in the nose. Okay, it's justice, right? May not be merciful, but it's just. Okay, so the man says, Jalaba, when he saw that Umar was serious, he says, well, give me a day to think about it. So Umar said, okay, you have a day to think about it. In the meantime, the guy packs up his bags and he goes off and goes back to Constantinople and he becomes a Christian again. Okay? And what did he say? He said, I denounce Islam because it doesn't discriminate between a peasant and a foreigner. Meaning, when he went back to Constantinople, to the lands of Christianity, he was going to find that he would be respected for a noble, and he could treat commoners just about any way that he liked. Okay, that's and we got actually quite a few examples of that. One actual personal example himself, where he treated someone badly. Some man came to him, and he used to have a certain time dealing with the normal people, and then he used to have a certain other time for dealing with very important affairs. One guy comes to him when he's dealing with these very important affairs and starts pestering, so Umar lashes out at him with his crop, right? And said, how are you disturbing me at this time? This is not your time. So the man goes off upset. And then Umar he feels remorse. He goes running after this guy. He's the, now remember, he's the leader of the whole people. Right? He goes running after this guy, begging him for forgiveness. He said, I did you wrong, please forgive me. Okay? And not only that, when the guy says, and the man, he says to the man, take my stick, take this and whip me back. Because I don't want you to have anything against me, not in this life or the next. So the man says, you're the Amir al-Mu'minin, may Allah forgive you and me. Okay? So I forgive you. But that's not the end of it. Umar, he goes back to his house and he starts crying and he starts weeping. Okay? And he starts crying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, complaining about his state. He says, this is what he says. He says, "Oh Umar, you are low but Allah raised you up. You are wandering astray but God guided you. You were base but Allah ennobled you and gave you sovereignty over the people. Now one of them comes and asks you for acquittal for the harm done to him and you beat him. What answer would you give before Allah?" Umar kept chiding himself, holding a straw in his hand, and he said, I wish I was a straw like this. I wish my mother had not given birth to me. This is how bad he felt about what he had done. So certainly we can look from those type of things. And we could mention many, many more incidents that Islam is teaching, Islam is enjoining upon the people justice. It's one of the essential qualities that a true believer in God must possess. It is something that the stability of a nation and a people relies upon and is founded upon justice. And it's a thought, by the way, for every Muslim when we wonder about our present condition. And we think about our lands. Where do we find justice in the lands of the Muslims? Where do we find it? We don't even find justice amongst the people who call themselves workers for Islam. So this is the sad state in which we are in. Of course, perhaps when we ask this question, Islamic law, justice or oppression, we're not talking about general things. Yes, okay, you might say the Quran enjoins upon justice generally. It generally enjoins and leads people and tells them to be just. Well, that's fine. But no, your Islamic system, you may say, or the Islamic system, and many Muslims may think this as well, is unjust. Meaning, the belief is that the laws themselves and the system itself is unjust inherently. Now, is that the case? The problem with this is that in order to really do a topic like this, justice, you have to really study Islamic law quite deeply. It's very easy to superficially say, oh man, you what? A guy steals and his hands is chopped off? Call that justice? What? Someone commits adultery and they're stoned to death and he apostatizes and it's death penalty and you get flogged for being drunk openly and so on and so on and so forth. Okay? And certainly it's not a problem. We can sit down and we could take each one of these particular individual laws and we can rationalize. In fact, you can rationalize just about anything. Okay? You can rationalize anything, but we can rationalize it. I mean, all of these laws have a very good basis on why they are the way that they are. But the fact is that these laws are founded on a whole different premise. When we talk about, for example, justice here in the West, when we talk about here about human rights in the West, we have to understand something. That the understanding that we have here of justice and human rights and so on and so forth is based upon a particular ideological and philosophical outlook towards the nature of the human being, the nature of society, and the nature of this world. And that is a philosophical outlook that Islam does not share. The concepts that are dominant in the West are essentially ones that are materialistic. Our ideas that we have here in the West of human rights and human wrongs are based upon those materialistic perceptions. But the teachings of Islam are completely different. Those things that Islam considers to be human rights and human wrongs are different. Because the premise on which we understand the nature of the human being, the premise on which we understand the nature of this world itself is different. Because Islam and the system of Islam and the justice system of Islam, and therefore by extension the laws of Islam, are based on the knowledge that there is a creator and that there is a day of judgment and that there is a paradise and that there is a hellfire.